It is possible to commit no mistakes and still lose. That is not weakness. That is life. Quote from Jean-Luc Picard from Star Trek. Let me open this episode with a confession. I have absolutely no illusions that I haven't made mistakes. I have done plenty of things I am ashamed of, both in my distant and my recent past. I have consciously made choices that I knew were wrong, that I knew could hurt people. I have been the bad partner, the bad friend. You will never hear me try to paint myself as a perfect victim. But this episode isn't about never making mistakes. It's about the idea that sometimes those mistakes don't actually have the effect on the outcome of a situation that you think they might. Now, I don't watch a lot of Star Trek, just like I don't read a lot of Sylvia Plath. You noticing a pattern here yet? That said, I think this quote is really deeply profound and overlays really nicely with the mentality I have had to carry through this growth period I'm in, especially when it comes to my breakup. It's been really important to me to handle this breakup as the person I want to be and not the person I've been. I wanted to be graceful through the process. I wanted to retain compassion and my sense of humanity. And that required me to carry two very uncomfortable truths. The first, that I displayed patterns and behaviors that were harmful to my relationship and caused my now ex valid and unnecessary distress. The second truth, that those behaviors and patterns were not necessarily the underlying cause for the collapse of the relationship. These two things stand directly at odds with each other, which is what makes them so difficult to carry. Your brain wants a nice, clean-cut solution, and sometimes there just really isn't one. Now, this is a part of the story where we get into some of the breakup tea, so consider that your fair warning. Otherwise, thanks so much for joining me once again for episode 3 of the I Hope I'm Wrong podcast. This is my Kobayashi Maru. In Star Trek lore, the Kobayashi Maru is a simulation that captains must partake in as part of their training. This simulation has a very unique premise. The scenario that the captain is placed into is designed to be unbeatable. The simulation has no win state. It is solely designed to gauge the character with which a prospective captain will face an unavoidable loss or defeat. In other words, it's how you'll react to a lose-lose scenario. As I've said, I'm about 4 months out of the extremely unhealthy collapse of an almost 6-year-long relationship. A large part of navigating this really difficult situation has been trying to figure out what the hell even went wrong. I've been focused on holding myself accountable for my wrongs while making sure I remember that I'm not the only one that holds blame. And throughout this process, 2 truths have remained consistent. The first truth, I was by no measure a perfect partner. I'll own that every time. I had shortcomings that unintentionally caused harm to my relationship and caused pain to my partner. People with ADHD can be extremely challenging to love and live with, especially if you like having a clean and orderly home or if you really like things done a particular way. I had an incredibly difficult time remaining financially stable and sometimes would make pretty poor financial choices. I can be annoying, make bad jokes I shouldn't make, and honestly, sometimes I play around too much. There's really no shortage of areas in which I can improve upon myself as a partner. Yeah, I had and still have a lot to learn about being a great partner or even a good partner. I have a ton to learn about love, about being healthier, and about connecting with my person. Those things are mine to own and mine to work on to ensure I can show up differently for the next person who, probably due to their own mental illnesses, decides they like me for some reason. But the second truth is that even if I had none of these flaws, even if I had batted 1,000 and been a perfect partner, it almost certainly would not have prevented my relationship from ending. In fact, paradoxically, some of those flaws and shortcomings are probably one of the only reasons it lasted as long as it did. I'm currently on month 3 of full no contact with my ex, and this has allowed me the space and quiet to really reflect on what happened and why it might have happened. I've spent countless hours replaying moments in my head, rereading text threads, and trying to make sense of this event that basically just tore the foundation of my life out from under me. Despite my best efforts at self-blaming, and believe me, I love me some self-blame, and my reluctance to paint someone I care about in a negative light, I keep coming back to one simple truth. This collapse was inevitable. Not necessarily because of something I could have changed or done differently, but because the other person at the table with me had also developed a particular set of patterns to protect herself that weren't being confronted. These patterns and behaviors chiseled away at the safety and security of our relationship in ways I was largely unaware of until it was too late. Now, to some listeners, this may sound like I'm trying to shift the blame in an effort to make myself feel better. I can guarantee you, nothing about that revelation feels good. Because that revelation means that I basically spent 5.5 years in my absolute nightmare scenario. A situation I was powerless to fix. Why is that my nightmare scenario? Because I'm a fixer. My entire life has been one long string of self-blame, a constant need to prove a worthiness that never comes, a truly exhausting and never-ending compulsion to do better, be stronger, carry more, tolerate more, and be less of a burden. A life largely comprised of shrinking and shape-shifting just so that people in my life who barely treat me with basic respect won't completely leave or won't be mad at me or won't feel bad about themselves for things they've done to me. This relationship was a perpetuation of that self-abandonment. Looking back, I can see now that I actually saw the cracks in the foundation pretty early on. We're talking 6 to 12 months in. But despite the steady flow of red flags, the patterns of disrespect, lying, and trust breaking, despite these constant alarm bells going off in my head telling me that something was off, that maybe I was in the wrong place, I stayed. Why, you might ask? Well, part of it is that I didn't actually realize how much these things were actually weighing on me. The bigger part is that I believed there was a win state. I wasn't able to understand that I was playing a game where my only option was to eventually lose. This was my Kobayashi Maru. I just didn't know it yet. I've taken my own accountability, but let's not mince words. My ex also made a lot of poor choices. She chose to do things that she knew were wrong, that she knew would break trust between us as well. She chose to hide things from me. She chose to lie to my face. She chose to actively avoid repairing issues in our relationship that would have required her to face her own issues. She chose to bottle her frustrations up until things reached a boiling point for her, at which point she unilaterally decided she was going to drop all of this broken shit in my lap and walk away from any sort of real accountability for the mess she had helped create. It's really easy to look back now and wonder, why the fuck did I deal with any of that? But in the moment, I thought I was being safe, that I was being understanding and patient, that I was building trust by allowing mine to be eroded. I thought that maybe if I were calm enough, understanding enough, if I just tolerated enough disrespect and disconnection, enough days of feeling inadequate and enough nights of feeling unwanted, then maybe one day I would earn the right to have a partner I felt connected to and truly loved by. I thought that maybe forgiving her the first time I caught her texting her ex behind my back and lying about it wasn't enough. Maybe I needed to forgive her the second time I caught her doing the exact same thing. Maybe I just needed to be more patient with her need to text another man and lie to me about it. Maybe I just needed to accept the excuse that she lied because she was worried I would be mad at her, despite having literally told her I was fine with them talking so long as she told me about it up front. Maybe if I just ignore that nagging feeling that this has obviously been happening way more than the times I caught her, then maybe I could earn a relationship where my girlfriend doesn't feel the need to text her ex and lie to me about it in the first place. I thought that maybe if I just compromise a little bit more, maybe if I just see her point of view a little bit more, maybe if I consider her feelings and her experiences, her fears, her pains, then maybe one day she would wake up finally ready to show up for me in the ways that I actually needed her to. Maybe she would finally trust that I wasn't going anywhere, that I actually wanted to be here. And look, I don't want to sound like I'm painting my ex as some sort of evil villain. Despite the ways she hurt our relationship, she does have some incredible qualities, some of which kept that hope alive. Materially speaking, she did try to make sure we were well taken care of. She tried to always at least maintain the appearance of support for me. She does do her best to make the people around her feel cared for, as long as she doesn't have to be too vulnerable to do it. I'm sure that if she were here telling her side of the story, she would probably tell you about all the ways that she feels she showed up, all the things she did throughout the days to try to be a good partner, the times I was sick and she took care of me, all the times she did things specifically to try to make me happy, which at times wasn't easy. And I wouldn't be able to argue with her. I believe she absolutely made sacrifices trying to make our relationship work. They just weren't the sacrifices I needed. I didn't need someone to buy me things or pay our bills. I didn't need someone to do my laundry. I didn't need someone to take care of me, and I didn't need somebody to parent me. I needed connection. I needed trust. I needed a partner that made me feel wanted, made me feel needed. A partner that wasn't afraid to upset other people or face their own issues to protect our bond. And I thought that maybe, with enough time and patience, the person I knew was under this messy exterior could finally bloom. So I stayed. I endured. I tried to create connection, and I swallowed every time these bids for connection were rejected, not wanting to rock the boat or make my partner feel like a bad person or like she was letting me down if I didn't absolutely have to. I tried to have the hard conversations, tried to explain that I just cared about us and wanted us to be the best version of us that we could be. But these conversations always somehow came off wrong. No matter how calm or caring or soft I was, it always seemed to land as an attack, as some kind of proof that she was failing me, that she was broken. And me not wanting to hurt my partner simply stopped trying to have these conversations. My concerns slowly festered into resentment, and that resentment ended up with me basically disassociating and just not showing up as the man I should have been. Again, I'll own that I wasn't perfect. Looking back, the only thing I can really chalk this up to is that the thing that ripped my relationship apart was shame. And while you can fix a lot of things, you simply cannot fix someone else's sense of shame. You cannot fix someone else's fear of not being good enough. Maybe I was unable to confront my shame at that time, but so was she. We'll talk more about shame in the next episode, but suffice it to say for now that shame was the real villain here, I think. Two people who inherently believed they weren't worthy of each other, who believed it was only a matter of time before the other person wised up and walked away. Two people who both feared the same things, but chose different ways to improperly deal with those fears. You can't wait someone out of their shame. You can't love somebody out of their shame. If someone is unwilling to face their demons, your only options are to leave and prove all their fears correct, or to stay and wait to become their victim. A lose-lose scenario. So, what's the point of this story? I knew intuitively before the actual split came that I was playing a losing game. I saw the plane coming down, the car approaching the cliff. And while I knew that I couldn't stop what was coming, I still had a choice. I could choose which version of myself would face it. Normally, I've handled breakups really poorly in the past. I hate uncertainty, and breakups absolutely kill me. So I typically spend a few weeks desperately trying to get the person back until I burn out and then just do a bunch of things to make the situation worse, guaranteeing the relationship isn't going to get saved. I'll drink, I'll distract, I'll rebound. There really isn't any level I won't go to try numbing that pain. But this time, I knew I wanted to handle it differently. I just wanted to take this on the chin. So I gave her space. I took a long drive to a friend's house. I cried, I reflected, I screamed. I beat myself up endlessly for my own mistakes. I talked and I talked and I talked and I talked and I talked. And every time I realized something new, I replayed everything again with that new data. When we spoke again, I already knew how it was going to end. I knew I was walking into the slaughterhouse, but I showed up anyways. I took my accountability and I stood firm in wanting to repair what had broken just like I always had. And then I played ball. I didn't push conversations, but I didn't ignore her either. I handled the business of the split. I moved my furniture out, handled splitting the bills. I even agreed to try staying friends because she swore up and down that she didn't want to lose me forever. I handled every conversation that came up with, if I'm being honest, probably more grace and calm than they deserved. But it became apparent that she was going to continue the same behaviors that led to our split. That she had no real intention of actually working on the toxic habits she had claimed she wanted to work on. She still deflected, still rejected communication. She even rushed to reconnect with the ex she had spent 5 years lying to me about. After about 5 weeks, I finally decided to send a final email detailing all the things I would have said had we been communicating at all, along with an explanation that while I didn't want to step away, I wasn't willing to continue pretending that whatever we were doing here was staying friends. Even in this moment, I offered grace, refusing to equate her harmful behaviors with being a bad person, and I even left a method of contact available should she decide she wanted to reach out and talk. That email was met with silence, and we haven't spoken since. At every moment detailed and every moment since, no matter how painful it's been, no matter how much doubt I had in myself. Every single sleepless night, every friend who had to be cut out in the name of healing, every attempt to connect in new ways with people, Every single conversation regarding my situation, I have remained true to the only thing you really can when you're in the find out part of a lose-lose situation. The person you're going to choose to be when your only choice is to lose.